Is Zach Hartley, and welcome to this course. In this lesson, I am going to go through basically my stock market routine, what I go through on a day-to-day basis to get started in the market, to understand what the market's doing, and to look at some of the stocks that I want to take a close look at or look at on a daily basis. So before we do anything else, let's get right into it, and I'm going to jump you into my screen here. So I'm using stockcharts.com, super simple, easy way to do it, and I've got one list down here on this account. It's got 35 stocks in it, or 35 tickers in it, and we're starting with the Dow Jones Industrial. I really like to start with this because it shows me the United States market kind of as a general, mostly focused on a certain number of companies, not as big as the S&P, but a good reference for the market. So when I look at this is really interesting. We had the deep crash here going down into March 23rd. That was due to COVID. We've come up here, and for the last kind of 2 weeks we've consolidated. I'm going to annotate this so you can sort of see what I'm talking about. But if you look here, we've basically gone inside of a channel here and touched either side about 2 or 3 times. So we came up, we touched the top of the channel here, bounced down, bounced up, came down to about halfway, bounced all the way back up, all the way back down, and then today this is our third higher day, and we're basically sitting on the upper side of that channel. So it'll be really interesting to see if we break through that or if we bounce back down. But what's important to know is that the US market, based on the Dow Jones Industrial Index, is in kind of a period of consolidation here. Now, the next chart we're going to look at is the World Index. It's sort of the same thing, but it's everything except for the United States. So this is the rest of the world, and you can see it's sort of the same pattern. It's not quite as clearly defined. It's almost moving almost on a trend upwards, but you could also say it's sort of consolidating here. So kind of tricky to see what's happening on the world scale, but a similar pattern to what's happening on the Dow Jones Industrial. So now that we have that in the back of our head, it's really great to see. Now let's start getting into some of the stocks. So this is just based on alphabetical order. It's not broken down by industry. It's not broken down by anything else. It's just simply alphabetical. So we've got Apple pulled up here, and this is really interesting. We had a lot of patterns coming up here in early 2019 and about halfway into the year, and then we just saw this big rapid growth all the way up to that kind of 330 mark, and then COVID hit and it brought this stock all the way back down to almost 210. We went from 330 down to 210, and if you look at this chart now, we are back up to about $315. Now this is absolutely amazing, and this is why you want to be a stock trader, because we are looking at the largest company, possibly, or one of the top 5 largest companies in the world, moving by over 50% from 210 to 315. That's a 50% move in a matter of less than 3 months. That's how volatile this market is right now. We are seeing the largest market cap companies in the world right now move by 50% in less than a quarter. That is why you want to be able to read and understand these charts, and that is why you want to be able to play the market, because you can pick up on swings like that in some of the biggest, largest blue chip companies. There's no other better way to make a return on your money than this, as long as you can analyze it and you can do it properly. So that's why we're in this course. That's why we're doing these lessons, and that's why we want to be here. So when we look at this chart, we're going to go in and we're going to annotate this. We can see that there's clearly some resistance coming here. So now when I look at this chart, I can see we hit almost 330. We built some resistance there. We came back down to 210, and now we're climbing our way back up. We're at 315 now. I think we're going to see some resistance at 330. If we break above 330 and we can prove that trend line, I think this may be a buy opportunity. However, I do think we are going to see some resistance at the 330 level. I think we are going to see a dip. If that dip is strong, I might play that downwards. Otherwise, I think I want to buy that dip and expect it to re-challenge the 330 or break above it. So what I am looking for on Apple now is I am looking for the dip or the clear break above 330. Those are the next steps for this stock. That's what I'm looking at. So that's Apple down. I don't want to touch this. I don't want to look at it again. I'm going to wait a couple days until we see what happens here. All right, next stock, Air Canada. This one is really interesting. Now, I know Air Canada, they started to make a comeback, especially with the Canadian government saying that they might support the airline industry and the wage subsidy and all that. And then yesterday or 2 days ago, Air Canada announced they're going to lay off another like 2,000 or 3,000 jobs. So I don't think Air Canada is going to be doing that well from a news perspective. We can also see here, this is really interesting, that they basically just broke through this channel. So they broke down through that channel. They're almost at $14, which is their low for the last kind of 30, 40 days here back till the beginning of April. And then they've got their low of below $10 here. We will see kind of what happens in there, but I think it's going to go a little bit lower. I don't see any positive signs that this stock is going to go higher from the RSI, from the MACD, from the moving averages, from the price movement, or the volume. I don't see any positive signs here, so we are going to hold off on Air Canada for now. Let's see what the next one includes. Okay, Aurora Cannabis. This one was really interesting. This is the cannabis industry. It has been plummeting for the last kind of year and a half. Comes all the way down. I thought we were going to see a descending triangle happening right here. Turns out that wasn't the case. It's continued for another 5 or 6 days to just continue to trade horizontally, and then it dropped all the way until May 11th, and then earnings came out, and Aurora still lost money, but they brought in more money than expected. They had higher revenue than expected. They had a revenue beat, probably because more people are smoking pot during COVID, and so they had higher revenue than expected, and their stock has jumped by 70% in one day. Absolutely amazing. I don't know exactly where it's going to be at tomorrow when it opens up, because this is a Canadian company and the markets are closed right now, but pretty unique. The entire industry was up yesterday, so I expect to see a little bit of positive momentum as we go forward. However, we don't really know. There's a couple of companies going through reverse share splits right now so that they can get their share price above $1, because their prices have fallen so much that they're almost worthless. Now, to put this in perspective, Aurora Cannabis blew up by 70% in one day. They had another day before that where it was probably 20 or 30%. And they're still lower than they were in March 3 months ago. Like, they were worth more 3 or 4 months ago than they were now, and they had a 100% gain basically in 2 days. So really tricky industry to play, depending on how you want to do it. Tough one to be in. I'm not ready to put my money into this because it's just a little too volatile for my blood right now, and I don't see the long-term earnings potential, or I don't know which company has the best potential yet because of how volatile this industry is yet, so I'm holding off right now. All right, Amazon. I really like this one. This one is possibly the ultimate winner out of COVID. They did have some worker strikes where they're going to have some issues there, but overall, this company is a beast. It's a complete and absolute dominator. So when we look at this chart, it's kind of tricky to understand. I'm going to put this onto a smaller time frame so that we can get a better understanding of it right here. We're going to go down to 0 years and 6 months. So comes all the way down, and then it rallies to a higher high, lined up with the Dow Jones. It lined up with the Dow Jones chart. The Dow Jones plummeted right here, 16 to 23, and then it started to come up, and now it's consolidating. But the Dow Jones is consolidating about 10, 15, 20% lower than its high. Amazon is consolidating much higher than its previous high. That, in my opinion, is the winner in COVID. They're going through the exact same trend as the rest of the market, but they're at an all-time market high right now, which is absolutely unbelievable. So this is a company that I want to get into long term. I absolutely love the fundamentals. I love the business model. It is a Goliath in online market, and it is going to win e-commerce in the long term, or it's at least going to have a chunk of it, and I want a piece of it. So right now we can see a little bit of consolidation since the middle of April here. I'm waiting for this to break above the kind of 24.50 mark right here where the high was, and then I want to get into it long term. If it doesn't break above here and it drops back down, I'm going to buy the dip when it dips. If this company can make it through COVID and be at an all-time high, I think it's got some long-term potential. So I'm looking to get into Amazon, but I don't want to do it yet, not until it breaks above this and shows some positive signs, or it dips down, and I'm going to buy that dip on the next one. So that's Amazon. All right, Alibaba, another e-commerce giant. Now this is kind of a weird chart. I got to change that. So we're going to look at it on a 2-year chart to basically get the glance first. So we've got a lot of horizontal support and resistance lines here, and then we have one big channel. So 1, 2, 3 highs, 1, 2, 3 lows. They're a little bit off, but that's okay. We're getting a little bit of a channel going here, and you can see that this exponential moving averages are starting to come apart and back in almost cyclically. It's kind of unique. So we're going to zoom in a little bit more on this. We're going to go down to 1 year. I'm going to see if we can get a better picture of what's going on here. So this is interesting. I like this pattern here. We're going to zoom in even more because I'm starting to identify something already. So we go down to the last 10 months here. I like this. I like this a lot. Okay, annotate. If I go here and I start to draw here, we can see a clear line of a triangle forming, and we have our first breakout. So this is super exciting. This is unique. We have basically a horizontal triangle here where we have the price coming in, and coming to a point, and then something has to happen. It either has to break above or it has to break below, and it looks like right now it is breaking above. We're at the 213 mark. It is about to test the previous high of April, and if it breaks above that high of April, I think this could be a solid breakout and a great opportunity to buy Alibaba. We have a crossover coming in the MACD right now. The RSI is slowly moving up. It's approaching the oversold, but it hasn't got there yet, so it looks like it still has some room to run, and we are not even near the ultimate highs of that basically kind of 230 zone for Alibaba at the beginning of 2020. So we will see what happens here. COVID hasn't had as large of an impact on Alibaba as I thought it might have, but we are seeing that basically horizontal triangle. We're seeing a breakout right now on Alibaba, and this could be a great opportunity if this continues to buy Alibaba on the long term. I do think it has nearly as much potential as Amazon because it is great, such a great play going the exact same route, but on the B2B side. So I do think there's opportunity there. We will see what happens, and I'm going to closely watch this over the next little while. So I'm going to continue going with this, but the video is already starting to get a little lengthy, so you need to create your own stock list just like what I'm doing here, and then get into a routine where every morning or every couple days you start going through that list, just hammering it out, trying to identify patterns and identify your trading opportunities, and that is how you get into the market, and doing that consistently is how you start to build your portfolio. So if you have any questions, send me an email, but if you got any value out of this, please remember to like and subscribe. It sincerely helps me out, and don't